You're tuned in to Just One Hot Mom with host Nanika Ansari. Get ready. She's about to bring you that fire, that flavor, that heat, all that passion, and more from around the world and in your neighborhood. Stay tuned.
Hey, hotties, it's your girl Nanika Ansari, and you are tuned into Just One Hot Mom. It is a beautiful day finally in the neighborhood, but I don't ever think we're going to see spring. I'm hoping we jump straight from spring, winter into summer because I am so ready to get a tan, a natural tan. So in case you guys don't know, most of you do if you follow the blog or if you follow my social media, I have 3 children. Simone, who's 20, Jamil, who's 14, and Anissa, who's 5. And so those huge age gaps have caused me to have to learn how to advocate for my children in different ways. And so what better way to learn how to advocate for them and for other types of children than to have someone who specializes in that. So on today's show, we have Carmon Hinton.
Hello.
Hey, Carmon. And so Carmon's going to help us by educating the advocate. If you are a parent, you are your child's first advocate. And so we want to get some tips and we want to learn how to advocate for them in the best possible way. So welcome.
Thank you so much for having me. I am great.
Good. I'm glad you're here.
I was excited about the sun. I just wanted the temperature to
get up
match. Yeah.
See, the sun came out because Cleveland's going to take the game tonight. In case you don't know, we are on the show. We are Cleveland Cavalier fans, and so we're rooting for them.
Yes.
So go Cavs.
Go Cavs.
So I wanted to talk to you today about P.E.A.C.E, which is your advocating for the children's group. Can you tell us what P.E.A.C.E stands for and why did you start P.E.A.C.E?
So P.E.A.C.E stands for Promoting Education and Awareness for Children Everywhere. I started it because I have a son who was diagnosed with ADHD, ODD, which is oppositional defiance disorder, anxiety when he was 6, and then sensory processing disorder. And so I've always kind of been in the field of helping individuals with special needs. I started with adults. And then I decided to go back for my master's so that I can work with children with special needs in the educational setting. But becoming a parent of a child is what really motivated me to start P.E.A.C.E because not only did I have the background as an educator, but now I'm a parent living it every day. And it's such a difference when you're the parent. It's a difference. You're tied. Tied with them. It's an emotional journey. And I saw a lot of things that I went through and experienced just with my son. Even though people knew I was an educator and I was in the field, there were some things going on that were not acceptable. And so I knew that there were other parents struggling the way that I was. Both emotionally, just feeling like, my goodness, I had the training, but I still felt like I didn't know what to do. Am I the only one going through this? And so I decided to advocate for our children and also help the parents in the process.
And see, that's what I think we're missing the part of is that there are parents out there who are more than willing to step up and to get the help. It's just that they don't know how to get the help.
Absolutely.
And you even said yourself, like, you're an educator and you still had to figure out how to get your son the best help possible.
Absolutely.
Do you think that there's a breakdown in our educational system and that's why parents are having trouble advocating for their children?
Well, I definitely think that districts are on the right track. They have trainings in place to help to make sure that their intervention specialists are trained properly. However, there is sometimes a disconnect individually as the teacher because there are teachers who go into the field and they go for a certain specialty. They're general ed teachers. They did not go to be an intervention specialist. They did not have the same training. And now we have children who are included in a gen ed setting. And some of the teachers don't necessarily know how to deal with some of the behavioral challenges, don't know what to look for in certain diagnoses, or, they just don't have that formal training. And so that is a problem to me. That's a problem to me because our state pushed inclusion, which I think is great. However, everybody has to be prepared to take that on. And when you have a classroom of 30 and 40 kids sometimes, what do you do how do you help the child? We don't want the child who can't sit down in a chair for a long period of time, to constantly be kicked out of the classroom, not in missing classroom instruction. And so I think as a parent, you have to make sure that you step in and let the teachers and the schools know, hey, I'm involved. I want to know what's going on, and I want to help. And if you don't know how to do that, we'll talk about that today.
Right. So I'm just about to ask that question. Like, so how do parents start to change the conversation? So it's not like I'm picking on you as a teacher. I'm not questioning your credentials. I'm just trying to figure out the best way to help my child. Because I think we talked about it before. I had an incident with my son where he needed tutoring in a specific area. And so I went to the teacher and I'm like, hey, he hasn't had trouble in this class all year, but he's having trouble now. And she's like, oh, well, you need to get him an IEP. And I was like, well, are we just handing out those left and right? Like, I didn't think he needed an IEP, but she was like, no, he needs that if he's going to get any type of assistance. And so what do you think about how do we change that conversation so kids who really need IEPs get them, and kids who may just need tutoring in a specific area get tutoring in a specific area?
Okay, first of all, a teacher should not just be saying he need an IEP. It's a team process. We don't determine eligibility as a teacher. Okay, so there's a certain process that has to be followed. And if you as the parent feel that your child could have something else going on and may qualify for special ed services, then you would submit a letter in writing to your district.
Okay.
That's the first step.
So listen up, people.
Okay.
She's giving you the steps.
Yes, that's the first step. Now, a teacher can also recommend. A teacher can come to you and say, hey, I see some things he's really struggling, but there seems to be something else going on. I would like to refer. And you can agree to that. Now, you said, I don't think that's the case. You can also do that. No one can force you into special ed services. You're the parent. That's your decision, and you're right. Sorry, what was your second part of that?
No, I was saying, like, how do children who really need IEPs get IEPs, and children who need help, just need general tutoring help because they don't understand the subject, get that help without being labeled? Because I think if we start to label everybody, that everybody gets mixed in together and nobody really gets the help that they need.
Okay, so then I wanted to address the tutoring portion of it. You said, how can I, come to the teacher without kind of offending him
like,
or her?
saying, like, I don't believe your credentials.
Right. So basically what you want to do is have that conversation and say, hey, I'm looking at my child. I know what he's capable of doing, and he's struggling here, but, some situations they didn't struggle with another teacher, or they didn't struggle the grade before. You can ask them, what interventions have you put in place to help my child? Because before you just say, this child needs an IEP, they need to be able to say, well, I've tried this, and this first, and this has not worked. So there need to be interventions put in place in the classroom first to show that they try to help your child and reach them in the way they learn. Because every child has a different learning style.
I'm so glad you said that. 'Cause I was like, I think, like, with these standardized testing and everything, we're really not getting the scope of everything that a child's full potential, because it's standardized testing. And not all kids test the same. Not all kids learn the same. So being in the classroom and trying to advocate for your child, I feel like some parents just get frustrated because it's like, okay, they come to school every day. I have to be at work. How can I be here and make sure that they're getting what they need without losing my job, without going crazy with this teacher, and without making my child receive a label? And so I think my other question is this. It's like, nothing's wrong with the child being labeled for their particular circumstances. Why do you think, though, there's such a stigma with saying, like, I have a special needs child that needs, like, I think if people can't see the special need, then they assume it's not there. Do you think that we are just making mistakes, that we're being judgmental when we can't say, okay, this person is special needs? How do you deal with that?
Okay, well, there's a number of reasons why there's a stigma, and I think it goes all the way back to when the term mental retardation was in the place. It was looked at that if you have a child who was considered, which we do no longer use that term, but who had an intellectual disability, then you need to hurry up and put them in a facility. And actually, my aunt was told this by a doctor. You need to get her in a facility before she's 15 or nobody's going to help you. You need to put her away.
Wow.
And so, unfortunately, some people, and we've come such a long way, but unfortunately, some people still consider that, a negative thing.
Do you think it's a matter of shame, though, that people are ashamed?
I do also feel like some parents are in denial. I feel like no parent wants any kind of diagnosis for their child, whatever it is, and so sometimes it's hard to receive. Then you have those people who believe that a whooping is a cure-all. The belt cures everything,
Right.
So I don't, it's just that, people don't want the label.
So for those parents having that issue, are there support groups available to help them get over the label issue? Because I think there are parents who realize that their kids need help, but if I say that my kid needs help and it's because they are having and you said intellectual, I like the term you said. Say it again. What was it?
Intellectual disability.
See, I like that. That sounds so much better. If they tell people that, then it's like, girl, what did you do to that child? Or, what I'm saying, if you was just a better parent. Are there groups out there that can help them start to have that conversation with people around them?
There are groups out there. Surprisingly, some of the doctor's offices hold them.
Okay.
And actually, there are a lot of online groups now. A lot of things are happening online. That's the way of the world right now. So you can find a lot of groups online as well. I know Mother to Mother is an organization that has
I've heard of them. Okay.
Yeah, that has a parent support group. So if you're looking for a group to join, and these are safe places, they should be safe places. If you ever go to a group and you feel judged, you're in the wrong group, because it should be filled with parents like yourself who are going through similar situations. You all are at different levels. So you might have a child who's in college now. And so the parents who have younger kids can learn something from you. And then there might be someone who tried the whole college thing, or child finished college and has some struggles in that, not getting the proper resources, and you could learn from them. So, I definitely think that if you're kind of, even if you're struggling or you're not struggling, a support group is definitely something that you want to have. And then sometimes the kids come together and they become friends, and, because they feel like they're around other children like themselves and they're not being judged.
They can be open, they can be free.
Absolutely.
I can be myself. I'm always curious about that, because it seems like we are so judgmental. We don't want people to think negatively of us, and so we just automatically assume that if there's something wrong with our child, people judge our parenting,
and people do
on that.
They absolutely do. I've gone through it myself. They're like, oh, it's because you're too lenient on them, and you should just give them more whoopings. And I'm like, listen, this boy was getting a whooping every day. How much more? It doesn't work for him, I'm not gonna beat my child, right. What you want me to do, so it's really about structure is the biggest thing when you want to change a behavior. But yeah, people judge, they do. And the first, I get so sick of hearing this when I mention about my son. They be like, he looked normal to me. That's what they say. That's how they say it too. He looked normal to me. And I'm like, well, okay.
But what is normal? Because I'm like, we all could say that everybody looks normal. You know what I'm saying?
Goes back to, people think that disabilities are people in wheelchairs, or someone who has a different facial feature, and it's not always the case. Invisible disabilities do exist. You can't walk up to a person and just look at them and see if they're suffering from depression. You can't look up and see if someone is necessarily dealing with bipolar disorder or anxiety all the time. Invisible disabilities exist, and you can't just look at somebody like, you look normal to me.
And see, I think that's the good thing, is to start the conversation so that people can realize that despite the fact of receiving this diagnosis, you can have what we consider a normal life.
Yes,
but there's
you can.
a matter of, like you said, putting structures in place and educating those around you to make sure, like, hey, this is what we need to do to make sure that, and I hate to say a normal life, because I always tell people, like, there's nothing
Well,
normal.
what is normal? You create your own normal. You create your own normal. What's normal for me and my son may not be normal for you and yours. You know, the normal for me is that when we go somewhere, I have to pack certain things to bring with me because I know how my son is. We're at the movie theater and my son spills a drop of pop on his pants. I know we got an exit stage left. I'm gonna have to catch it on Netflix.
And see, that's the thing, like, but we need to stop shaming those parents, because you know, as soon as he does that, if he flips out, there's some parent in there like, she should just learn to control him. And you don't know other people's situations, so you need to stop shaming people. Like, I think that's one of the greatest lessons we can learn.
Absolutely.
As parent to parent, is to stop shaming each other, because you'll assume somebody is a bad parent when they're actually dealing with a whole bunch of other stuff that's going on that you don't know about.
Yes, definitely education. You have to educate yourself on what's.
So how can we start that educational process for parents?
For parents who have children with special needs, or for other parents, or
Other parents, because I feel so bad sometimes when I'm like in Walmart, and I'm not gonna lie, I want to look over and be like, if she don't get him, but then I'm always in the back of my mind remembering how it feels to have somebody give you that look of like disgust because your child is doing something. How can we start the conversation for other parents with children that, I hate using the word normal, but with children without disabilities, how can we start to get them to understand?
You know, I really think that we should be having conversations like this in school. You know, at our SPO meetings, our parent meetings, or PTA, or whatever you call it in your district, because we need to be a support to one another as parents. And sometimes parents don't know what to look for. I mean, if their kids did not have or go through any of these things, they don't realize it. And the first thing you do think of is, oh, it's a discipline problem at home. But I think though it does start, like, we need to be more parent groups and organizations where parents who don't have kids with special needs can come in, and then that they can teach their children as well some sensitivity training. You know, because kids will be kids.
Kids are cruel.
They are cruel. A lot of times they're brutally honest. And, you know, it just, you know, it takes some time for you to sit down and kind of teach your child that there are differences in this world and everybody is different, and you are to respect and love every single person.
And see, I just think it helps, because I find myself, like, I'm not gonna lie, like, the school my son goes to has so many meetings, but they're all about standardized testing, and so I get so frustrated that that's all we ever discuss. Like, I get it, you guys need it for the district, you need the numbers to be a certain way, but if we never have any other conversation, how are our kids learning to cope in a society with so many different type of people? So I wanted to ask you, how do we have the conversation with parents who have special needs kids and standardized testing? Because that's a whole nother door that's being open. You know, like, if they're in a different class, are all kids still required to take standardized testing?
Yes, in some form.
Okay,
so it depends. You know, if a child is in a general education classroom and is receiving maybe some pull-out services, just they get the extra help in reading or math, they're going to be taking the same test as every other child. But if they have an IEP, listed in that IEP are accommodations for your child. Okay, so that can include frequent breaks. It can include extended time. It can include directions read to and clarify. And in some cases, if it's allowable by the state, the test can be read to them. Now, generally, that cannot take place during a reading test because you're testing the child's reading, but sometimes you can do that for math.
Okay.
So yeah, that's why sometimes that's why that IEP is important, because if your child does not have an IEP, he will not get those accommodations.
And see, I think that's just so messed up that we still use a standardized testing system to see where kids are in their learning process. Because I think, like, recently my son had a teacher went on maternity leave and so, but she decided not to come back. So a new teacher started, and she decided that she was going to change the grading system, and they were going to do all these stuff. And I'm like, I feel like you have to accommodate the kids. Like, I get it. Teachers are underrated. You guys are not paid a lot, but I think when you have a heart for kids, like, you have to take that into consideration that they don't all learn the same way. So I think I asked this question at the beginning, but I'm going to phrase it a different way. Like, how do we as parents approach that conversation? Like, hey, I've figured out that my kid learns this way best. Is there a way that we can shift the learning process? I mean, you're right. It's like 30 kids to one teacher. Mm-hmm. How do we help? Okay, how do we help you guys? Mm-hmm. That's what I need to be asking. Forget all the other stuff. How can we as parents help at the educators?
Okay, I want to get back to the testing real quick because I did fail to mention something.
Okay.
So these are for, the kids who might have an intellectual disability or lower functioning autism or something like that. They are also taking a test, a standardized test, but it's not the standardized test that you're thinking where they have to sit at the computer and read and, do multiple choice. It's called the alternate assessment. And it starts in 3rd grade, but it's a test that's more on their level, So I wanted to bring that up as well, because that's another form of testing that some people might not know about. So we need to be aware of.
Yes, I'm glad you said that.
There's not a large group of kids who take this. It is expected that each kid takes. There's some extreme cases or something like that where the kid will take the alternate assessment, but the schools really try to steer away from that, because the goal is, even when you're receiving special ed services, is for the child to be able to do well in a general education setting. Mm-hmm. We're not here to say you're in this program for the entire rest of your school career. Mm-hmm. No, we want them to move out. Okay. As for helping us with...
Yeah. Well, no, because I think it's so frustrating. One, like, don't be mad at me, y'all. It's always that one parent in the class who forgets that the teacher has a whole class to teach, and you only want them to pay attention to your child and what your child has going on, and for the exceptions to be for your child. Mm-hmm. How can we as parents, though, come together and support everybody's education? Because your child is one of 30 in that classroom. So I don't want to be selfish. I mean, I do sometimes, but I don't want to be
It's hard not to be. Yeah. It's your baby. I think part of it is helping your child at home. Okay. Homework, which is a whole nother conversation.
Because some teachers don't believe in homework. Some of them do it at school.
Some don't believe in it. Some do believe in it, but they're giving homework for things they haven't taught yet. Mm-hmm. So it leaves the parent to teach. And then we do have this new thing I'll call the flipped classroom, which means that they would send something new home with the parent, and it's being introduced, and then when they come back, it's taught. So
don't do that.
Yeah,
if my kids' teachers are listening, don't do that. Don't. I done had to relearn algebra and geometry. I'm tired.
I know. Khan Academy can be your best friend sometimes if you're not hip to it. Get hip to Khan Academy, parents. It will help you help your child, and it will help your child, especially in math. They have some amazing videos and stuff out there. But to answer your question, the other thing is just to be understanding. Mm-hmm. Teachers are under a lot of stress. We have a lot of things that we're responsible for, even paperwork wise. Mm-hmm. And a lot of teachers feel like now that there's been so much taken away from actual teaching because of testing. And it's not really our districts either. This stuff is coming down from the states.
So I think that's so messed up. What if they start doing standardized testing for state jobs? Let's start to do that. Let's make sure that you guys are doing your job in the standard way. Like, what if we reversed it?
What if they tested for you to become the president?
We wouldn't be in this predicament we're in right now. We wouldn't be in it. So, look, Carmen got us off track. I'm trying to behave myself.
I just asked the question. That's all I did.
So parents who are currently in denial, like, you're a teacher, so you have a parent, you go to them and you say, hey, there's an issue going on, we might need to address this, but they stay in denial. How do you still help that child when their parent is in denial about what's really going on? Because we have parents like that.
And sometimes the parents do come around. It's just not, they aren't able to receive it at that time. Mm-hmm. It's sometimes a hard pill to swallow for us, because like I said, you're wondering like, oh my goodness, is my baby going to be able to function? Okay. Is he going to be able to do this and that? And it gets very emotional sometimes. But sometimes they don't come around until later. And honestly, if there's someone that says to you as a parent when your child's younger, hey, you might want to, ask your doctor about this, or your doctor says, hey, I want to refer him for behavioral health or something like that, do it. Because what happens is you don't receive it, but then the child continues to struggle all throughout their career, and then they're 15 years old and you're like, I should have did something about it. And the quicker you find out what's going on, the better it is for you and for the child. And it changes your understanding, really, because let's think about it. Now, I know every parent can relate to this. How many of us sit down to help our child with homework and we just like, oh my goodness, I cannot
I'm
take
raising
it.
my hand.
What? 2 plus 2? You don't know 2 plus 2? I cannot. Oh my goodness. I know you know this. You're not concentrating. I can't take it. And you're tired. You're trying to cook dinner. You got the spatula in one hand. The child sitting over here at the kitchen table. They're asking questions. Before you know it, the baby's at the table crying because you've been stressed out the entire household. Now the baby don't even want to do homework anymore. If you find out that your child was dyslexic, you would not have been so stressed out. You would have been more patient. You would have had a better understanding. This is why he's having problem reading. He's flipping his letters around. This is going on. That's going on. And it's just better for everyone.
But do you think, I just thought of this, it just came up, like light bulb just went off. But do you think sometimes it's generational? Because say, for instance, if that parent had an issue in school that wasn't resolved, and so now you're a parent of someone who's having an issue in school, and that's the only way do we need to stop this from generations from happening? Because
that does happen.
I'm getting the feeling like there's some parent out there right now like, well, I'm trying as hard as I can.
And they are trying as hard as they can. And it's a lot of times that sometimes you have parents who, once your child gets so far in school, they did not go that far in school. So it's very hard for some of them to help the child with homework. If they're not able to read well themselves or something like that, they are literally doing the best that they can. And I just feel like, there are websites out there that can help the child, as well as, even when teachers send things with home for homework, maybe giving a little sheet to read or something like that. Sending the newsletters home to let parents know this is what we're going to be working on in the next coming week, so that the parent can maybe go to the library and check out a book or something.
I think people sleep on the library. Yeah. Like, the library is one of your best friends. One, it offers free classes on most of the stuff that our kids are learning in school.
They do.
And it offers it for free. Yeah. Like, how can you beat for free?
Yes.
Like, so please check out your local
And
libraries.
they're just a great resource.
They are.
If you go to the library and you ask for a book on, anything, help with algebra. I know I read all kind of the dummies books. I'm like, I don't care.
I do. I tell people I have the Bible for dummies. It breaks the Bible down.
Mechanics for dummies. I mean, I have them all, but there are things out there that help. There are also tutoring programs out there. I know that, I'm trying to remember. I cannot remember her name, and I knew this was going to happen, but Cleveland State has a tutoring program.
I know what you're talking about. I can't remember it.
Yeah, and it's not that expensive. You think it's Cleveland State, it's astronomical. It's not. And I'm going to try to figure out at some point her name.
We'll drop it in the comments once we remember it.
Yes. But they have a tutoring program, and I see people posting a lot on Facebook about Smarty Pants tutoring program that's out there. I've never met the lady or anything, but I've heard great things about her.
And I think that's the big thing, though, investigating. See, we see all these commercial places who are out to get our dollars, like they're really expensive. And you think tutoring is too expensive, but it is a matter of educating yourself. Like, we as parents have to take some responsibility in this. It can't be all on teachers. It can't be that we don't have the money and the resources are not available. You have to do your own research. You have to become a student of advocating for your child, because if you don't, I feel like, we're just going to have another generation of people who don't think education is important. Like, I have a friend who teaches, and I go say her name. I have a friend who teaches at, I think, down in Tri-C, and she, like, screenshotted her class, and she's like, you know what? The classroom was empty. She's like, everybody went out the night before because they were having some big thing. She came to teach, and nobody showed up for the class. She was like, we are not teaching our kids to value their education. And so if I don't say, hey, teacher, how can I do this better for my child? They don't understand that they need to, later on in life, make sure that they are advocating for themselves. So I think it's very important that the parents learn to advocate for themselves.
Peer tutoring is another good option, though.
Peer tutoring?
If you can't afford, because tutors sometimes can be expensive, but peer tutoring is a very good option. And a lot of times you'll be surprised. I mean, my son went over his friend. He actually called me. I was like, because I wasn't home, and I said, now you know the rule. You have to stay in the house. Don't open the door for anybody. That whole thing. And he called. He said, my friend needs help with his homework. Can I go help him? And I'm like, sure. And a few days later, they did like the parents did like a fire or whatever in the yard, and we went over there. And his mom was so grateful. She was like, thank you so much. He was able to break it down for my son the way that I could not.
And that's because they're in school together. So, what I'm saying? They get to see it together.
Absolutely. So, friends can help each other as well.
All right, hotties, we're going to take a short break. We'll be back momentarily. I'm on with Carmon Hinton of P.E.A.C.E, and we're talking about educating the advocate. Talk to you shortly. Hey, hotties, welcome back. We're continuing to educate the advocate, and I'm here with Carmon Hinton, and so she's going to help us as parents learn to advocate for our children. During the break, we brought up different careers and stuff for children, and so how are we teaching children with special needs to go after the career that they want? Because when you think about it, people only focus in on their special need. They don't determine I think sometimes they don't determine anything past that, like, you're going to have to deal with this for the rest of your life. But that doesn't mean you don't have a future. So how do we open those conversations with parents, like, hey, ask your kid what they want to be?
Yeah, absolutely. And in schools, well, at least I can, speak for our district. We have the kids do career assessments in middle school to kind of help find out what high school would be the best fit for them. Because, a lot of high schools, if you want to be, one thing, you might want to go to this high school. If you want to art, you want to go to that high school. So they do things like that. We try to find out, do surveys for them to try to find out what their areas of interest are, as well as what it is that they're good at, because sometimes their area of interest and what they're good at are two different things. They don't match up. So like we were talking about, you might want to go to the NBA. You ain't never picked up a basketball in your life.
But that's your career aspiration.
That's your career aspiration, but you're a wonderful artist. So a lot of times, as for parents, we need to talk to our kids and say, hey, what is it that you see yourself doing? Take your kids on a trip somewhere. If your kid says, I love animals, I want to be a veterinarian, take them to the zoo. Ask a vet if they could, come in and shadow or talk to them and see what it is they actually do. I always laugh because my cousin, we talk about this all the time, how she says that she used to want to be a doctor. And I think she went to John Hay, and she said they went on a field trip and at the morgue or something crazy, and she said she passed out. She passed out on the field trip. They had to call my aunt and everything. She determined at that time she did not like blood, so doctor was out for her.
She's not the only. I'm serious. When I first went to school, when I first was going to college, I was like, I wanted to be a doctor. I was so stuck on that. Like, yes. My first semester, I was like, I got to get up out of this. Like, dude, y'all lied. It looked so glamorous and stuff. It was a lie.
It does. And so, sometimes kids think because it sounds great, this is what I want to do. And then when they find out all that comes along with it, their mind changes.
And see, I just think we need to think of all the kids, like not think of them as the same, but like that they can have future goals.
They
that
can.
Each kid has goals and they can set their own goals. And it's not just because I have a special need that I'm never going to be able to attain this goal. It may take me a little while longer than someone else, my peer,
Yes.
but I'm going to be able to do it.
And that's another thing. Parents, do not limit your child.
Amen.
Do not limit your child. They are capable. Children with special needs are capable of doing great things. They are capable of doing the same things that their typical developing peers are capable of doing. Don't limit them and say, well, I don't want him to do that. He might get hurt. Or he doesn't like talking to people. No, you have to expose them, find out what it is that they like, expose them to some of the things that they're not comfortable with, and try to build them up. You cannot, I'm telling you, I have a shirt that I got made. It says disability, but the dis is small and ability is bold. They still have the ability. It's about teaching them.
And see, I think sometimes we limit our kids because we are limited. Like we don't think outside the box. Like with technology now and our kids being exposed to so much, is that I think sometimes we as parents are afraid to see them fail, but they actually need that failure to become better at whatever it is that they want to do. But because we have a limited imagination, we pass that on. And so now my child has a limited imagination and they don't go off and do what they're supposed to do because of me.
Yeah. And when sometimes dads, you're really bad at this. Every dad wants the son that plays football, basketball. You want him to be a star. You want him to be just like you, and what about when you get the little boy who wants to dance, and sometimes we discourage our kids because of what we had in our mind that we wanted them to be. And they're who they are. So my son, I'm when my son was born, I'm like, oh, I'm gonna have a boy, I'm gonna take him to all the sports thing, I'm gonna make it, and my son was like, I don't want to do nothing with balls. This was his exact words. I don't want to play basketball. I don't want to play soccer. I don't want to play football. I don't want to do anything with balls. I was like, well, what do you want to do? He said, I want to do something with horses, like show jumping. And I was like, oh, okay. But he was like show jumping, And I'm like, okay. And so what did I do? I'm on Google. We found him a therapeutic horse program. My son is riding horses. He was riding by himself his second class.
Really?
Yes.
Wow. So what resources are available, since you mentioned it? What resources are available for special need parents who are like, they are trying to figure out an activity for their kids to do where they can enjoy it and it be an environment that's safe for them? Can you give us some resources?
Well, I'll tell you about one of the summer resources. It's the biggest resource guide you'll ever come across. If you're looking for special needs camps or camps that are specific for children with autism or ADHD or whatever the need is, you want to check out the Summer and Beyond guide. Okay. They have a fair every year. It's passed already, but you can find the guide online if you just Google Summer and Beyond 2018. And if I can get the link, I will drop it in the box later.
Okay, cool.
It's about 150 pages. I mean, so
be prepared to do your homework.
No, they break it down for you. So if your child has autism, it will say this camp is for children with autism. Like it'll have a code there, whether it's for autism or sensory or whatever it is. Music therapy is big now. And so Victory Gallop is where my son attends. They're in Akron. But hey, we do what we have to do.
Amen.
We jump on that freeway and we go and we're there, and I better not miss it or I would not have made it to this interview. Okay. He would not be happy. He's so serious about his horses, but Victory Gallop is wonderful. And there are other programs out there, but they are amazing. They work with all types of children, varying abilities. Their youngest, I believe, was 3. They take their ponies to the hospital to visit kids who are terminally ill. They work with kids kicking cancer. I mean, they do amazing things, and it's very affordable. That's another one. I just got an email, which I do want to shout this person out because this is a great resource for parents who have children with ADHD going to college, and it's called affordablecollegeonline.org. I'll drop this link as well, but it's they have a resource centers for students with disabilities, and it names students with ADHD. I'm sorry. They give you a list of all the colleges who have programs, and there are colleges out there that are just for kids with special needs.
See, that's what I'm talking about. But I think you and I talked about this last night, is that people tend to tell us, like, well, they'll grow out of that stage. And I want you to explain to people, like, it's not something that these kids grow out of. It's something that they learn to, what did you say yesterday? They
manage it.
Right.
So, yeah, people say, oh, you cannot grow out of autism. Mm-hmm. And, people say all the time, you'll grow out of ADHD. There are adults out here with ADHD, mm-hmm. and who will tell you, yes, I do have ADHD, or I do have ADD, know. But it's not that they grow out of it. It's that they learn how to manage it. They learn more about themselves. They learn what their strengths and weaknesses are. They learn what type of careers they would be good at versus ones that they would not be so good at. Mm-hmm. They learn how to... it's a process, because you have to learn how to be organized. Those are skills that you learn to do. And so now it might not be as obvious that the person has ADHD or whatever the case may be, because now they know how to manage it better.
Okay, and so that means, like, all throughout college, all throughout life, you just get better and better at it. But I think it first starts with making sure that the people that are surrounded by you are getting educated. So we as parents, we go get this education, and we have to educate an entire village of people, because you're not just you and your kid as a family. How can we start the discussion? Like, what's one of the first things we can say to our family when we're trying to get them on board with our structure process for our special needs child?
Sometimes a family can be the most difficult mm-hmm. to deal with. The only thing that you can really do is continue to advocate for your child. I mean, I done had family arguments, mm-hmm. And there have been times where I have chosen to step away from not going to the Thanksgiving dinner at so-and-so house, because I don't want the drama of them mm-hmm. saying my son, did A, B, or C, or sometimes say the most inappropriate thing in front of the children, and I'm not for it, mm-hmm. But you do have to come back and have that conversation with your family and say, listen, this is the situation. This is what's going on. This is what we're working on, and I need your support, mm-hmm. because it does really take a village, to raise your kid. And your child needs to understand, though, this is our world at home, but honey, you're not going to live here forever. Mm-hmm. So if I don't teach you how to adjust to certain situations and to deal with people outside of myself, you will not be successful. So we need to have those conversations with our children as well, and make sure that we're bottom line is we're teaching them to live without us one day. We want them to function independently.
Mm-hmm. So how can we as a community support peace? What can we do for you?
Well, P.E.A.C.E, you can check us out on Facebook. We do have a Facebook page. It's called P.E.A.C.E, Promoting Education and Awareness for Children Everywhere, the whole long name. So we post different resources on there and articles. We do also talk a lot about mental health mm-hmm. because mental health is very important in children as well, and it's a big thing right now, especially going on with schools. They talk a lot about the school shootings and the gun laws. Mm-hmm. The gun laws. Why aren't we talking about the challenges that these children are going through as well? That you have a child in your school that's going through mental health crisis or going through things, and what do we have things in place for them? Mm-hmm. Are there resources in our schools that can help a child? Like when I went to school, I had a guidance counselor that I can walk in that office and talk to this man.
I don't think they exist anymore.
No.
Okay, I was like...
Maybe in some schools, but, I'll take that back. We do have it's not the guidance counselor that, like, used to work for your school and Mr. So-and-so is going to be there every Friday,
We had Sister Teresita, honey. She would get you together.
Yeah, we had a sister too, and then we had Bill Divis, who has passed away, but if he was still living, I would tell him he literally helped save my life. He was amazing. But they do have outside agencies now that come into the schools. But sometimes the waiting lists are so long, that they're not able to get to every single child, because, you can go halfway through the school year and then all of a sudden a child has a need and, you have to go through that whole process or whatever. I'm sorry, I didn't forgot what now she get the...
No, I was just talking about, like, how can we help you?
Oh, okay. So, yeah, check us out, because we'll have events posted on there, as well as if you have questions and you want to call me directly, you can call me directly at 216-868-1008. I have parents inboxing me all the time saying I have a situation, or I don't know what to do, or is the school allowed to do this, or what can I do to help my child do that? I'm always open to answer questions for parents. We also have a website. You can check out our website. Is advocatingthroughpeace.org. advocatingthroughpeace.org. And then we also are on Instagram at advocating_through_peace. So right now what we're trying to do is make sure that we are educating our community.
Is that the full through?
Yes.
Okay, cool. So it's THROUGH.
The full word.
Okay,
yes.
Cool.
Advocatingthroughpeace.org.
Yeah. So we're trying to make sure that we, one of my biggest things right now is educating our community, but also teaching parents their rights. Because I think some parents don't realize what rights they actually have when it comes to schools.
And see, I think they think that, I know a lot of parents who think like the school is just the end all be all.
Yeah.
Like there is nothing outside of here. Like if the teacher says this is it, I talk to the principal, this is it. They bring in whatever the school's called guidance counselors now, and they say that's it. Like I can't go above and beyond that. That's just it. Or another thing I see parents do is switch schools. And then it's like, help solve the issue at this school. You know what I'm saying? Like I think one of the most challenging things we do as parents is that we leave a problem on the table instead of addressing it, because my kid is in 8th grade, won't have to deal with this next year. And so, but what about reaching back in our community and helping the kid that's in the 7th grade who's going to the 8th grade who will have to deal with this next year? So instead of just, I don't want to say it's a coward's way, because you do get frustrated, but taking the time to address the issue so that some other parent doesn't have to go through that frustration.
It's really hard out here for parents sometimes, and a lot of times the parent doesn't have the time, I mean, these parents are working, some are working 2 to 3 jobs. So it's really not fair for us to say, that they either don't care or taking a coward way out. Cause a lot of times, I mean, it's like either I'm providing or, and if I miss work, I'm working for a temp agency, whatever it is, if I miss work, I might get fired, I might lose my opportunity to get hired. It's so many situations going on. So I really just try to be open and empathetic to parents. But then there are there are a group of parents who are just like, whatever,
Go to school is like a daycare every day.
Yes.
And so I just think it's up to us to make sure that our community understands that there are resources available. I want to thank you for coming on today and being a resource for our community.
Yes, I am in the process of creating. I have a few resources. One of the best resources, though, if you're looking for educational resources, is the Ohio Department of Education's website. I mean, there's so much information, and there's something called a procedural safe guide out there.
Okay.
So if you want to know what your rights are as far as the rights that you have as a parent in regards of a school district and the processes, there's something called a procedural safeguard. You should be getting it automatically. If you have an IEP, you should be getting it every year. But if you aren't, you can go on and download it or read it or print it out right on the Department of Education's website.
Oh, well, thank you, Carmon. Okay, so Hadis, she dropped a lot of nuggets on us today, and it's a lot of information. I'm sure some of you are on information overload, but the thing is that we have to take the time to make sure that we are laying the best foundation for our children. They are the next step. They're going to be in charge of us. Think of that. Yes. You want to make sure that the person that's going to be in charge of you is educated. So Hotties, I want to leave you with this thought, is that no matter where we go in life, there is a time and a place that we are going to need each other. Your kids need you the most. They need you to be the advocate, the voice. They need you to be there and support them in everything that they do. And first, their education. So don't be afraid. Don't be afraid to step out on your own and to ask questions. We get so fearful that somebody's going to reject us or somebody's going to think that we're stupid.
No.
You know what I'm saying? Like, people will think that, they're going to think that I'm dumb because I don't know.
No, there is no dumb question.
There is no dumb question.
And things change all the time. I mean, and you can go and talk to your friends, but what works for your kid might not work for mine and vice versa. So, make sure that you're asking questions on what to do, what resources. Talk to your pediatrician, because a lot of times they're a really great resource and they can refer you to someone who can help you.
Shout out to Dr. Finn, because she is an amazing pediatrician. As always, hotties, you can follow me and the hottest kids on all my social media at Just One Hot Mom, or go on over to the blog, because we're going to be talking about it even more. I got 20, 14, and 5, so there's a variety of things going on over there at JustOneHotMom.com, and tune into ElevationsRadio.com, where we will constantly give you the information to make your life better. Guess what, hotties? You've been tuned in and you've been elevated. Talk to you soon.